Go. Okay. So now, as we said, these are solutions to adaptive problems. And I mean, this is really men. Men should be aggressive, right? Men are aggressive. Males have more of a necessity to establish territory, whether we're talking about human males or, zebra males or whatever, okay? Well, it turns out that lower status and poor men are more likely to be violent than higher status men. They have more of a need to establish territory. Males have less to lose from a biological sense because as soon as a male has given his sperm, job is done, right? But a woman has years and years to invest into a child. So from a genetic perspective, I made my baby. It doesn't cost me that much to have a death, but the women must stay protected. Younger men have a greater need to establish themselves, to make a reputation. This is very interesting. The best predictor of the willingness of a country to go to war is a proportion of the population that are male between 15 and 29. And you want to talk about the entire Middle East, and you're talking about 15 to 29-year-old males is an incredibly huge proportion of those countries. All right? Tremendously large. And with all of this going on, what's my point? We carry this genetic baggage with us. We do. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Biological evolution is really, really slow compared to cultural evolution. Our culture has evolved. We're civilized. You're civilized, my ass. You're a civilized animal is what you are. You're still an animal. You can put a tutu on a pig, but it's still a pig. That's what civilization is. We carry it with us in all situations. Clearly, there are other influences as well. We talked about testosterone at one other point. High levels of testosterone predicts aggression. Remember, I am not excusing it. I'm not saying, well, it's not my fault. I have high testosterone. No, but there's a strong correlation between them. There's also some neurological disorders whereby people go into what they call sham rage. Here, Philip Bard found this in cats and mice and, rats or something. But they also found this in human beings. That sometimes when people have a tumor that's growing, and the tumor in their brain, it pushes on particular areas, and people will just go into a rage. They call it sham rage because it's rage, just incredible anger. But in order to really have anger the way we describe anger, there has to be a source. There has to be an object in the environment. And sham rage, there's no environmental object. It just is, okay? And so there are clearly centers in our brain which can trigger this violence. Clearly, it can be genetically bred, okay? We can breed animals for aggressiveness or passiveness. Very simple. Up in Russia, there were some researchers studying foxes. The Russian government wasn't giving enough money, so what did they do? They decided they would breed these foxes to make them very tame. So what they did was, normally if you approach a fox, they run away. If you approach a fox in a cage that can't run away, it'll bite you. That's what foxes do. But just like within any species, there's variability. Some are a little bit more afraid, and some are a little bit less afraid. So what these researchers did was they bred the least afraid ones. And then the second generation, the least afraid, the least afraid, the least afraid. And after 20 years now, they've created a species of fox that are just like a dog. You come home and they come up and they want you to pet them and play with them and they'll lick you in the face. And it's a fox, okay? You breed it that way. How about the pit bull? I'm going to tell you this. This is one of my big pet peeves. Big pet peeves. Is a pit bull. A pit bull was never intended to be your family pet. Some idiots in England, they dug a big pit. They took English bulldogs. They threw them in the pit. The dog that survived came out of the pit and was allowed to have babies. The dog that died, guess what? Didn't have babies. And you know what they did? They bred these things for one purpose only, to kill other dogs. That is it. I know, everybody's going to tell me, no, it's the house they're raised in that makes them aggressive. No. These dogs are aggressive by nature. This is what they are. However, unfortunately, many pit bulls are brought into a bad environment, which makes them even worse, okay? Because they're seen as a tough dog or something, that not the best people are sometimes getting these dogs. These were not intended to be a family pet. That's like saying, I'm going to bring a tiger into my house as my family pet because it's just really a cat. Bullshit. These things are meant to kill, all right? Every single time I see one of them stupid news stories about pit bulls attacking people, it always starts out with the owner going, but she was such a gentle dog, until she wasn't, okay? I know I'm going to get some hate mail for this, but I really have a problem with it because these pit bulls and irresponsible owners have stolen my park. I can't even let my kids play at the park that I pay property taxes for because they let the stupid things run wild. Whatever. So there's other things too. Clearly, most in-home fights, assaults, when the police are brought in, almost all of them, there's some alcohol. It's just, there is. What happens is alcohol, it does a lot of things. I mean, the first thing that alcohol does as you're consuming it is to impair the balance centers. The hippocampus in the back of your brain, which allows you to coordinate and balance, which is, of course, why the police in a drunk test will say, close your eyes. See, the problem is I can't do it even when I'm sober, so I'm screwed if I ever have to do this one when I'm drunk. Stand on one foot, walk a straight line, things like this. But the second thing that gets impaired when you consume alcohol is the frontal lobes, and we already talked about those frontal lobes. The frontal lobes are that part of your brain which allows you to do long-term planning, to understand the long-term consequences of a decision. While drunk, there is an inability to perceive the long-term consequences of the decisions, and so we find many problems, of course, with beer goggles, I believe is what we called them when I was in college, beer goggles, and in-home fights and all kinds of different problems related to alcohol. We already talked about testosterone, but we could avoid 2/3 of all crime simply by putting all able-bodied young men in cryogenic sleep from ages 12 through 28. Yep, there's something true to that. The frustration-aggression hypothesis is this notion that frustration triggers a readiness to aggress. Here, I knew this was in this chapter. This is very cool. This is Robert Plutchik's emotion wheel. I love this thing. Imagine this three-dimensional object, and then they've unfolded it so that you can see it here. You find that there are different emotions, and they sort of blend together, sort of like Roy G. Biv, right? Roy G. Biv just sort of blends together just like this. That, like, fear and surprise are very similar emotions. Fear and trust, I don't know. I guess I'm not really impressed this way. But this way is beautiful, okay? Apprehension, fear, terror, distraction, surprise, amazement. These are just, Roy G. or shades of green or whatever. I guess these are green. Shades of blue. Or where's the frustration and aggression? Where is it in here? I can't read that. What does that say? Oh, yeah, there it is. It's the darkest one, which is the hardest to read. Annoyance, anger, rage, okay? These three emotions just sort of blend into each other. You could put the word frustration right in there. Frustration, you're frustrated, you're trying to achieve a goal and you can't get it. Annoyance is, like I said, some of the most violent days in the world are, you're stuck in your car, it's hot, the smell from the blacktop that they're laying down, the from the jackhammer and people honking their horns. It leads to a bang. That's why people shoot each other in situations like this, because they blend together. They become one. They go to each other. And so the frustration-aggression theory is this theory that frustration triggers a readiness to aggress. Frustration is a blocking of a goal-directed behavior, okay? But often what we find is that, I like this displacement, but don't quote me on that because that makes me sound like I said I like Freud. I don't like Freud. Freud is full of shit. But I'll take this one anyway. Displacement is the redirection of aggression to a target other than the source of frustration. If you're frustrated because, as we said in the last chapter, the price of cotton is low and you're not getting enough money and so you're feeling poor, you can't attack the price of cotton. Instead, you can lynch somebody, right? You can displace that aggression on something else. It's usually the dog when you walk in the house, right? Poor dog, what'd he do? But that's what the frustration aggression is about, is frustration leads to aggression. but often the source of frustration is something that either A, you can't verbalize, or B, can't attack. And so that aggression goes somewhere, bang. That's interesting. If frustration caused by an understandable thing, then it leads to irritation rather than aggression. Yeah, I guess so. Relative deprivation. This is very interesting. Here's a good quote before I go into that. A house may be large or small. As long as the surrounding houses are equally small, it satisfies all social demands for a dwelling. But let a palace arise beside the little house, and it shrinks from a little house into a hut. Okay? Very interesting. You were perfectly happy until, all right? And it's like, I'm living in my house, and I'm so happy because all of them, up in my neighborhood, every house is brick. They all look the same. They really are the same, except the guy next to me gets a boat. Oh, shit. I was happy a minute ago, and now I'm not. Relative deprivation is the perception that one is less well off than others who you compare yourself to. This is really, really difficult. I don't want to say bad things about my wife, but my wife tends to make friends with very rich people. I don't know why she does, if they seek her out or she seeks them out. But my social circle involves people that are way better off than we are, which leads my wife to believe that we are very poor. We're not very poor. She just doesn't know the people that are very poor. Compared to those rich people, yes, we don't have that much. Compared to other people that you're not seeing, we have an incredibly large amount. We find that crime tends to be high, not in poor places, but in places where there's a large disparity in incomes. Okay? People get very angry when there's not enough. In fact, there's a lot of, we'll get into the health psychology part, that people get, a lot of health problems occur in places where there's a large disparity in incomes. It's not being poor, it's feeling poor that makes us sick. Of course, we watch other people, we learn aggression pays. Yeah. Oh, here's the classic study. I think that I'm going to have to stop before I start this study because it's a fairly significant amount of time to go into it, and we'll come back in a minute.